Was it time we had to be? Love, well, I don't fault ya. With the weeks, in my track, when I'm not outside. Through the cold and the beauty. Jumping back on Carol's back shoulder. I was jumping on the corner. I'm fighting like I told ya. It's over, October. On Carol's back shoulder. I found a woman, she could barely breathe. Gotta go.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome to Hoop City with Paul Sir. And I know what you're thinking. You can hear the voice right now and you can say, oh man, that's not Paul. And then if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere that you can see us, you're going, that's definitely not Paul. He's about 6 feet too short. And it looks about 50 years younger. And you would be correct because I am Josh Fenwick. I'm his producer. And I'm also his guest host today. So welcome to Hoop City with Paul Sir. We got an absolutely stacked show for you this morning. Kiera Lyons, the CCAA Women's Coach of the Year. She'll be joining us in studio, head coach of the Nate Ooks women's basketball team. Pretty amped up for that. Paul did pre-record an interview with Alan Gibb out of Raymond, Alberta, and their women's team. So we'll be running that at 10:40. And then I'll be joined by Andrew Schlecht of The Athletic at 11:20 to talk about the Thunder and the MVP race and everything that's going on in the NBA. So no traditional deep dive today, but alas, we got something going on nonetheless. Poll question today. Pretty simple. Who is coming out of the West? Your choices are the Thunder, the Timberwolves, the Spurs, or the Nuggets. If you got something else, comment it under. We'll get into it. Lots to talk about relating to the NBA. And I got to be honest, pretty nervous. It's the first time hosting a show, so hopefully the text line is active, which you can get to us 833-401-1440. That's right, 833-401-1440. That is our text line to get in on the conversation. You can also watch us on YouTube, Sports 1440 AM, or on X, the Everything app. It's all happening on X. Also, Sports 1440. Instagram, Sports 1440 AM. Same with Twitch. And if you miss today's show, you can get it wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple. That's where it is. So anyways, the poll question, who's going to come out of the West? I chose this question because I think it's very intriguing. I think everyone would say it's the Oklahoma City Thunder because they won the championship last year. They have the reigning MVP who might be going back-to-back this year. We'll get into that at 11 o'clock. And they're super, super deep. However, I have issues with the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have some serious problems inside rebounding. They give up a lot of offensive rebounds. They don't box out particularly well. If Chet isn't on the floor, or Isaiah Hartenstein for that matter, they have a tough time crashing the boards because everyone else is about 6'7", and it's tough to go up against that when your opponents are teams like the Denver Nuggets, who Jokic is an absolute madman on the boards. He catches it with one hand and then just tosses it down the court. Like he knows where the ball is going to go. Or a San Antonio Spurs with Luke Cornett or the 7'4" alien and Victor Wembanyama. Like all these other teams in the West have height, and on top of that, their centers have girth. They're a little more. They're a little heavier and stronger than a guy like Chet Holmgren, who spends a lot of time on the floor because you got to rebound to win games. And what I remember from the night that the Thunder and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander played the Celtics, and Shea broke the record for most consecutive 20-plus point game performances in NBA history. Shout out, Canadian boy. They gave up 8 offensive rebounds in the first 2 periods, or quarters, my apologies. And I think the Celtics converted on every single offensive rebound except for 1. And that's just in the first half. Like, that's a lot of second chance points to be given up. I like the Nuggets. They've had some real health problems, but Jamal Murray, again, good Canadian boy, really turning it on. He had a 50-pointer just the other night, and he did it with 6 free throws, I believe. Unreal. Like, that's to do that is insane. You need free throws to win, and he's like, hey, you know what? Give me 6 of them things, and we'll be fine. And then, of course, they have probably the greatest skill player in the NBA in Nikola Jokic last night against the Jazz. Close one with the Jazz, by the way. 33 points, 15 rebounds, 12 assists. He almost had a 20-20-20 game the other night, but he came up short on the assists. I believe he had 19 against the Pacers, where Andrew Nembhard had 21, set the Pacers franchise record, most by a Canadian since Steve Nash. Fun fact. So I like the Nuggets. They gave the Thunder a lot of trouble last year. I mean, they went to 7, and it was pretty clear that in that series, whoever won was going to be the champs because we didn't think the East had it. Of course, we were proven a little wrong because the Pacers took them all the way to Game 7, and I personally think would have won if Tyrese Halliburton didn't go down with his unfortunate Achilles injury. But alas, we're playing ifs and buts. The Thunder are the world champions. And then the Timberwolves, they have the guy in Ant Edwards who's just an offensive machine. I still have problems with Rudy Gobert. He's a serious liability on offense and anywhere on the perimeter, which is they're a bad matchup for the Thunder. Or the Thunder are a bad matchup for them, I guess. Because you can just pick apart Rudy Gobert on the outside and then play to the inside. You can start running some cuts and things like that to get inside. So do I think the Timberwolves will come out of the West? I personally don't think so. I think they're the least likely of all those guys. Who I do think is going to come out of the West, my vote, the San Antonio Spurs. And I know, you got to learn to lose before you can learn to win, yada, 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 all that stuff. Victor Wembanyama, and everyone says, he hasn't played in the NBA playoffs before. Victor Wembanyama played in the Olympics and played in the gold medal game where he was probably the second, maybe third best player on the court against the United States of America and made it close. I mean, Steph had to drop 50 on him. Yeah, that absolutely sick 3 where he just fell back. That was awesome. But Wemby knows what it takes to win. This guy, I think, is the number 1 competitor in the NBA right now. Coming to the All-Star game saying, I'm not here for fun, I'm here to win. And like being genuinely like crying happy tears when you come back from down big in the 4th quarter. Like, this is a guy that cares so much about basketball. I can't imagine a world where he doesn't step it up in the playoffs. I know like he takes some iffy mid-range jumpers here and there, but like we saw what he did coming into the season. It was unreal. And then he comes back from injury and he's almost better. Like that is insane to me that he comes back and he's almost better after a huge injury. And then like he opens the floor up for so many other guys on the Spurs because like Steph Castle is a guy that absolutely drives to the bat. Like he's a great slasher. When Wemby's on the court, he has this gravity around him where it forces 3 guys to sort of cover him because him on the roll, like he's taller than everybody. Like he can just lay it over everyone. So they need that coverage. And if he takes 3 defenders with him, that opens up a lane for a guy to cut through and do what they do best. Lay the ball into the basket. Easiest 2 points in the game. So if I was picking someone to come out of the West, I would say it is the San Antonio Spurs. A couple other headlines from around just like the basketball world, or I think this is the number one thing. Shout out Canada. The Toronto Tempo, they win the coin flip in the NBA expansion draft. They elect to choose second in that expansion draft. So they get the earlier pick in the actual WNBA draft. Pretty amped up. The Tempo, they're doing a Canada takeover. Like, I think everything about the Tempo is shaping up in a good way. So I'm really looking forward to the WNBA season this year. I truly, like, I'm really amped up. I think this is the first time in a while that I've been really excited. I mean, I was excited to see Caitlin Clark play, and she's must-view television. But now Canada's got its own basketball team in the WNBA, and I know it's an expansion team, so the first season might not be so hot, but hey, never say never. You know, like the Golden Knights in the NHL, they come into the league and they go to the finals the year of their expansion. So I'm not willing to write things off for the Thunder quite yet, or for the Tempo quite yet. My apologies. Three from deep. There's some good things here. Obviously, the Tempo is my first one. I think this is super exciting that they're getting that earlier pick in the WNBA draft. It's something for all of us to look forward to. I'm amped up for that. The MVP race. Whew. Doggy, I think this is the closest MVP race I can remember in a long time. Long time. Like, I think you have to go back with the most amount of people, because we're talking about 4 players in the NBA that have a bid for the MVP. Luka is absolutely insane. Single Luka, as NBA Twitter has been calling him since his fiance left and took the kids. He's been on an insane heater. Obviously, Shea has been the pinnacle of consistency in the NBA and efficiency. He's putting up efficiency numbers that we really haven't seen since 2016 Steph, who, in case you don't remember, won the MVP unanimously that year. They also won 73-9, and he was a huge thing to that. Nikola Jokic, again, he's a center who's leading the league in rebounds and assists, averaging a triple-double. I think there's a bit of voters fatigue with Nikola Jokic, though, already. He's won 3. Obviously, that year with Joel Embiid was in the middle of him being the first person to three-peat the MVP since Larry Bird back in the 80s. I think there's some voter fatigue with him, but I think he has one of the best. I think, in my opinion, he has the best case, because the Nuggets are a totally different team without him on the floor. Like, just not even game to game or when he was out with injury or anything, because they still won some games. I'm talking like shift to shift. When he's off the court, if Jamal Murray's not there, which he needs to be, but he also needs to be there with Jokic, so he becomes dog tired. They don't have that other like playmaker, because as much as I love Jamal Murray, he's a guy that scores the ball. And Aaron Gordon is a guy who was made in a lab to play with Nikola Jokic. So I think his singular importance to the Denver Nuggets is so vastly, incredibly important. It makes it bigger for him. That's his bid for the MVP. However, I think the MVP this year is Victor Wembanyama, as I've already talked about with the San Antonio Spurs. He's lost one game since February 1st with the Spurs. I think they've lost 2 games entirely, but he's lost 1. He's a 23-1 since February 1st, and his game has gone up another level. And we talked about that gravity, which to me, it's gravity that I haven't seen since that 2016 Steph, or what Steph does for the Warriors, because he's so dangerous on the outside that everyone sort of has to focus on him, that it makes lanes open for everyone else, or it opens the floor up for everyone else, or it gets other shooters better looks. And Wemby on the roll, making it easier for everyone else to score and making it more efficient for everyone to score. Like, when we get to 11, I'll really break down the MVP. But for me, I think Victor Wembanyama is the MVP. But again, like, this is so close all the way around. And we didn't even mention like guy like Jaylen Brown, who's been doing it nonstop for the Celtics in Jason Tatum's absence, who last night had a huge double-double for the Celtics, by the way. Shout out JT. But yeah, I just like, he's right there, but I think he's that tier below the other four that I've already mentioned. But that's the top five. And one of those first four guys I mentioned isn't going to be a finalist. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to be Luka Doncic because he's really just come on in the last 2 months. So I think the voters are pretty good with recency bias and not voting for the guy who just came on late. Whereas like Shea, again, the pinnacle of consistency and efficiency, he holds that record. And I believe it's still active for most consecutive 20-plus point game performances in NBA history. And he's doing it on almost 50, 40, 90 shooting. Like that is efficiency and consistency like no one has ever heard of. But Wemby just, I can't get over Wemby so much. I have everything that I need to discuss this at 11. And then the other three, here's number 3. LSU Duke last night in the women's March Madness tournament. I don't think I've ever, actually, that's not true. I've seen a shot like that. Kawhi Leonard in game 7 against the 76ers, bounce, goes in. Last night, Duke versus LSU, Duke gets a 3 off and it just spins around and around and around and around. And then finally just pops up and drops in. Wow. Kim Mulkey, obviously pretty fired up after that because her team lost. And again, as I said on the Triple S, if you're a listener, probably the scariest person on the face of the planet. That is not someone that I want to be stared down by in the slightest. Tiger texts in. You guys can all text in. 833-401-1440. Tiger says, "You're a bartender, Mickey Finn." Tiger, where are we coming from here? Mickey Finn? What's happening? So anyways, that's my 3 from deep. Now, again, the loaded show today. Coming up just after the break, we've got Kiera Lyons, head coach of the Nate Ookes women's basketball team, the CCAA Coach of the Year. Pretty fired up for that interview. And then interview with Alan Gibb from Raymond, Alberta that Paul pre-recorded earlier this week. And then I'll be joined by Andrew Schlecht of The Athletic. And he covers the Thunder and does their weekly newsletter. So amped up for all of that. Keep it locked here on Sports 1440. This is Hoop City with Paul Sir with guest host Josh Fenwick. We'll be right back after these messages.
If you're without personal health insurance benefits from your employer and are self-employed or retiring, contact Innovative Benefits. Innovative Benefits helps break down personal health plans to put you in the driver's seat and reduce your net cost. They'll help identify the best plan for you and your family so you can pay for what you do use and look how to reduce what you don't use. Don't be left out in the cold. Understand all your options with Innovative Benefits. For more information, visit innovativebenefits.ca today.
When you hit the ice, it's all about you and your skates. The stride, the feel, the glide, the power, the performance. Why trust your skates to a grinding machine, or even worse, a tournament parent in a parking lot? At Aligned Custom Skate Performance in Sherwood Park, the art of skate fitting and sharpening is customized to the athlete.
Aligned Custom Skate Performance, where precision meets passion. Oh.
Visit AlignedSkate.com to learn more.
Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440. Powered by Subaru. Safety, reliability, and uncommon value. Visit Subaru.ca.
Hey, the Home and Garden Show is back at the Edmonton Expo Center now through Sunday. And guess who's there? Metal Supermarkets. Visit their booth and learn all about their huge selection of metal and metal processing. Those spring projects for your home, garage, and garden? Why go with wood when metal lasts forever? Plus, they'll be giving out free samples.
Tastes mentally.
Yeah, on second thought, maybe not. Your local convenience stores for metalsupermarkets.com.
People you know will go hungry tonight. Your local food bank is like a beacon, reaching out to those in need, offering warmth, food, and hope. Visit foodbankscanada.ca and help them serve hope on a plate, because no one should weather life's hurricanes alone.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
All right, welcome back to the big program, as Kevin Karras would say. Hoop City with Paul Sir. I know I'm not Paul Sir. I am far too short and far too young to be Paul Sir. He's away on vacation with the family. Wishing him all the best in California while we spend the rest of us freezing our butts off in the Edmonton cold. But very excited for this interview as we are joined in studio by the Nate Ookes women's basketball head coach, Kiera Lyons, the CCAA Coach of the Year. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, like I told you in the break here, I did a lot of prep for this interview. I'm very stressed. First interview I've ever done, so forgive any of my ignorance in this process here.
Don't even worry, and I might call you out on it if you're.
Cool I fully expect you to. From what I understand, you're a straight to business sort of coach. So
depends on the day.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So you go to the national championships essentially, losing the bronze medal game. That's sort of tough, but it was a good season nonetheless. 17-3. Like, this is your fourth year with Nate. What have you learned in these 4 years that made you guys as dominant this year as you were?
And just to start, we lost in the bronze semi. So the
Bronze semis, my
the
apologies.
CCAA has a backdoor bronze. Actually, first time I'd ever experienced that. Lost in the semi, so didn't have an opportunity to play in the actual bronze game. But I'm really proud of how the girls played it in our last one. So tough way to lose, but also if you're going to go out, it was a good way to do it. I mean, I don't know how much time you have. If I could tell you all the things that I've learned over the last 4 years, every year it's a new group, new challenges, completely different season, and things that you have to face with different girls and different opponents, obviously. But it's one of the things that I love about this job is that I'm continuously learning. There is no ceiling. There are challenges that are new all of the time, and you're always learning, always growing, always developing. And I've been told that if you stop learning as a head coach, it's time to hang it up.
I think that's sage advice.
I mean, that might have been Paul Sir, honestly.
Oh, really?
It might have been.
He's a smart guy. He might have coached once or twice in his life. Yeah, you talk about challenges. I think there's going to be this might be a big challenge for you. You have six players this year that are fourth or fifth years. I know Micah Reed is a fifth year, and Rory Vandermeer, she's a fourth year as well. And was she the second leading scorer in all of Canada? Peyton Nielsen.
I don't know about all of Canada. She was the second lead. I don't think it was all of Canada, but she was the second leading scorer in the ACAC.
Right.
18.4 points per game. She had an absolutely unbelievable stretch at the peak of our season. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because over the last 4 years, like we've been building and developing and, getting to this point where we knew that we had a chance at being a contender in the ACAC and being able to go to nationals and compete there. And it now the rebuild kind of begins again. We graduate. We had 4 fifth years. We had Sadie Setvold, Micah Reed, Peyton Nielsen, and Michaela Rose, who all used up all 5 years, which is something that is incredibly special and a really hard thing to do and doesn't happen, especially at Nate, very often, just because of the programs. Mm-hmm. And then, we lose a couple fourth years, some big pieces. Rory Vandermeer, like you said, she's in her fourth year, and her program is kind of taking her out. And then there's a few others that are, deciding on kind of where they want to head. And so there's definitely a lot of changes and movement happening on our roster, but it's also an exciting kind of change of the guard. We've got some incredible rookies, just wonderful people. Our third and fourth years are leaders that are going to be stepping into bigger roles. It's really exciting to kind of see how our culture shifts and what we look like with some younger energy and just some different people in leadership positions.
Yeah, no, that's very exciting. So what sort of challenge does recruiting pose? Because I know that you just brought up that, like, Nate, the programs are shorter, and also, like, I have a feeling that some people do try to make it to that, like, Can West, U of A, McEwen schools so they can play bigger competition? Like, what sort of challenges do you face when you're trying to recruit players?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it. There are so many U Sport teams now as well, right? And so the opportunities to play at the next level there's a lot more than it used to be. It used to be a pretty clear cut line between, CIS and ACAC, whereas now it's growing. There's lots of new U Sport young teams that are trying to get their footing and find a way to be competitive. And so the recruiting part of that can be challenging, just because girls that would have been ACAC girls maybe in the past are now finding homes in U Sport. And then, our programs are, we're a polytechnic school, so our programs are pretty specific. And so anybody that doesn't know really exactly what they want to do, it's not really a place where you can just take general sciences and figure out what you'd like. And the programs are shorter generally. Like most of them are 2 years or 3 years at most. There's a few programs that are with 4, but that's something that I also emphasize when I'm recruiting and when I'm talking to girls before they come here is, what is your plan academically? Can we do more than one program? I believe that any education is good education. And if you can take more than one program and add some different, letters behind your name on your resume, that's always a good thing. And just the experience of being in an educational institution for that long, I think is wonderful. So we have those conversations before they come here. Like, are you planning on playing? How long do you plan on playing? Are you going to be here 1 year, 2 years? Like, the way that we try and teach the game and how we try and develop players, you need more time. You need between 3 and 5 years to really start to understand our systems and the way that we play and to know your teammates well enough to be able to play with them and have enough reps for it to be meaningful. So it's something I talk a lot about with girls when they're coming to NAIT or when they're, I'm recruiting them, and just to see what their plan is so that we can have enough time to develop.
Yeah, no, I totally get it on that front. So you do focus a lot on, I know there's a piece written about you somewhere on the NAIT website that I was reading that you do really focus on education first.
Yeah. And I think every coach does. At the end of the day, you are leaving that institution with some sort of academic program or diploma or degree or whatever it is. And like I said, I really do think that any education is good education. I think the people that you meet, the way that you learn to operate within a classroom or online, your time management, like, it's all encompassing. And so being a student athlete is, I think, such a wonderful way to set you up for the rest of your life, because it's so challenging. And it just leaves you with skills that, a lot of people don't learn for a long period of time in their life. And so being able to be a student and find academic success while finding success on the floor is really important. And we talk about being a high achiever in all areas of your life. How you do what is that saying? How you do one thing is how you do everything. That's not exactly right, but you get the gist.
I get the gist, yeah.
You get the gist. So yeah, we just talk about being a high achiever, and that translates in every area, especially into academics.
Yeah. I think it's sort of time to bury the lead here. CCAA Women's Coach of the Year. Congratulations. Like, what did that mean to you?
Thank you. I was really surprised, if I'm completely honest, to get recognition in the ACAC, first and foremost, like from my peers, from, the amount of amazing coaches that are in Alberta and in our conference, was incredibly flattering. And then to win it at the national level, I was very surprised. I didn't really know what to expect. And the fact that I won was just very flattering and obviously just a really nice bonus on the season.
Yeah, it's a cool looking ring too.
Yeah.
That's personalized. It's very nice. So why don't we go back in your coaching career? Because before NAIT, you were with the Stingers on the bench. Am I correct in that?
Yes. Yeah.
So how long were you with the Stingers? Like from their inception, or
just the one season? Well, as a coach, I had been involved with the Stingers since the inception. So I had been like their in-game host. I did some media for them, and was a part of a podcast and did all these kinds of different things. And then I ended up joining the coaching staff in 2021, the year that we hosted and won the championship. But after, it was just one season, and then after that, I got right into coaching at NAIT. It was a really nice kind of reintroduction back into coaching. Like, basketball had always been in the background of whatever I was doing and whatever career that I was pursuing at that time. But it was really sort of what brought me back to, wow, this is something I could really do.
Yeah. So being with them from the inception and like you said, in-game host, was you took the RATV program at Nate?
I did, yeah.
You and I cut from the same cloth. Our intern was the one that brought it up. She said, I think I heard from a friend that she did that. And you were trying to convince some other student, one of your players, to be like, oh yeah, it's a good program. Like if you're trying to extend, like, yeah, you should go and take that. So when you came out of that, were you super sports focused, or were you like, maybe this can be a thing into coaching, or did that even cross your mind?
No, at that time I hadn't really thought about coaching. Hadn't thought about coaching as a career at all. Honestly, like I never thought I would be. I didn't think that this would be something I would do. It kind of caught me by surprise as well. But I took the program. I actually did the color commentary for the Nate games, for the basketball games, and then helped out with volleyball when I could. I don't know nearly as much about volleyball. Shout out to Josh Ryan, who was my partner, and
there we go.
Knew a lot about it. So I did that, and I thought about just trying to get into sports media somehow. You know, I knew that sports was something that I wanted to pursue. I didn't really know it in what avenue, but I was like, oh, you know what? I think that would be a fun way to do it. Worked at CTV after I got out, realized that it wasn't for me. And you know, the sports media stuff is fun. I still do some color commentary. I've done it with Paul Sir at Stingers. Nice. I've done the U Sport Nationals. I've done the ACAC Nationals, and I like to kind of keep my feet wet, just be able to do that. It also helps me brush up on my basketball knowledge as well. But yeah, it just I wanted to be on the training side, the actual sports side, and not so much the media, and that became clear pretty quickly.
Yeah, we actually got a text in here from an old broadcasting partner of yours. He says, hey, Josh, saw you had Kira on. Kira and I broadcasted Ooks basketball together back in 16-17, and we did the women's nationals together. Great to see the success she's had. Michael Menzies.
Oh, hello, Michael. Yeah, I've had a couple, but yeah, he was another one, like so easy to work with, so knowledgeable. It was so, he made my life so easy. That was the nice thing about the play-by-play partners that I had, Josh, Michael, and there's a couple others as well. I mean, Doug McLean, I've done it with him a decent amount, and Mark Majot. Both of them are phenomenal. Like they make it so easy. Yeah. But yeah, like when you have a really good play-by-play partner that knows what's going on, it makes it very, very simple. And I've been very blessed to have some wonderful partners.
Yeah. This is Hoop City with Paul Sir, with guest host Josh Fenwick. We're joined by Kira Lyons, the Nate Ooks women's basketball head coach. Oh boy, this is a bad look on me.
Don't even stress. You're doing great.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So what was one of your favorite moments of the season? I know there were some standouts, like Micah Reed had that 14 three-pointer game. I believe that set the record. Peyton Nielsen, maybe this season broke a scoring record, or maybe that was last season. I'm not totally sure. But 17 and 3, there's got to be some like really solid memories in there, maybe even off the court.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, actually, our meeting in our locker room after our last game, that was really what we talked about. You know, it was such a fun group. They loved each other so much. Their energy was contagious. Everywhere we went, people made comments about like, wow, they look like they're having so much fun. You know, the energy is so positive, and I think that's what I'm going to take away from this year, is just how special the group was, and how much fun they had. And it's not like that every year. And it's a grind. You know, being a student athlete is an absolute grind, and it has its ups and downs every season where you're worn out and you're exhausted, and you still have to show up for everything that you're expected to show up for, your training, your practices, your games, your classes, everything that you're doing. And they were able to do that while, having a ton of fun. We went to Victoria this year in the preseason, and that was really special and really fun. That's really the first trip that we've been able to take together as a program since we took over. And then being able to go to Montreal and be downtown and be a part of a national championship. And Dawson was such an incredible host. And it's just something that I know that the girls will remember for the rest of their lives. And I really hope that they look back on this season the way that our coaching staff does, with just nothing but, pride and memories of the relationships that they've made and how much fun they had.
That's great. That's awesome. So going into the off season, what's the big plan here?
I mean, I feel like I haven't been able to slow down since I got back. Mm-hmm. So, we've got our ID camp coming up April 3rd, 4th. So if you've got anybody that's interested in signing up and being a part of our ID camp, the link is in our bio on our Instagram. It's also on our athletics website. So you know anybody that's interested, and grades 10 to 12, even if they're not going into college, it's a great thing to get experience going to ID camps and being nervous and, being able to play through that. So, nice little shameless plug with that one. But yeah, recruiting and off-season training, we train all year round. So the girls that are coming back, we'll have our open gyms and our small group sessions, and the girls lift all summer. And I'm a part of that. I'm also helping coach with Basketball Alberta this summer. So I'll be doing, assisting with the U17 girls team. And yeah, I think hopefully somewhere in the next couple of weeks, take a little bit of a break and relax. It's after being in Briarcrest for a week and then a couple days at home and then a week in Montreal. I feel like there's a lot of admin stuff and other things that I've missed out on that kind of piled up. And it's my first experience as a coach coming back from nationals late in the season. So, all that kind of work that piles up as you're away, it's something I need to take care of. And then, hopefully take a rest at some point.
I'm sure you'll get a rest eventually, or, sleep when you're dead.
Yeah.
Much like
right.
me.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I can't say how much I appreciate you coming in this morning. Really filled out the lineup today. I was really stressing. So thanks for coming in and making it so easy for my first interview. And best of luck next season and this off season and with Alberta basketball.
Thank you. And I appreciate the interest. It's such a nice thing to have media outlets reaching out and interested in women's sports, because it is such a special thing and it's caught such a high that, it's nice to be able to have interest from media outlets. So I appreciate you having me here.
Oh, hey, thanks so much for coming in. Coming up on the big program here, we're going to be joined by Alan Gibb from Raymond, Alberta, pre-recorded interview with Paul. So keep it locked here on Sports 1440, Edmonton's sports leader.
Out of home?
We do it all. Endless digital platforms to connect your business to more customers, to intrigue them, engage them, so they choose your product or service. Get started now at stingraymediasolutions.com and let us help your business grow. We are Stingray. That's what we do.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry. We did it.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
All right, welcome back to the big program. Josh Fenwick here, sitting in for Paul Sir on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have an interview here that Paul recorded with Alan Gibb from Raymond, Alberta, coaching. He's a 5A championship coach. His daughter Delaney playing down at BYU. Absolutely insane player for BYU. If you haven't checked her out, got to do that. YouTube the clips. She's absolutely unreal. So please go give it a look. So here is Paul's interview with Alan Gibb from Raymond, Alberta.
Back to Hoop City with Paul Sir here on your Sports Leader, Sports 1440. And of course, on all of our podcast networks and with YouTube. You can watch us anytime, anywhere. But I'm pleased to be joined with the head coach of the new 5A category Girls High School Basketball Championship, Alan Gibb. Alan, thanks so much for making time for me.
No, thanks. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for doing that.
Well, Alan, I was able to get over last Friday and watch your team defeat McGrath, and we spoke briefly afterwards, and I believe you said it was the 6th time you played a very good McGrath team all year. I know you were 6-0 against them, but first of all, how do you feel about Alberta going to a 5A category?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think a lot of, if you look at the U.S. side of things, they've got 5A and 6A, and so I think it's good. I think it gives an opportunity for some schools to go 4A as well. So it just gives more opportunity to play in a provincial championship type game. And then from the 5A standpoint, I think for us anyways, it's nice. Sometimes when we were doing 4A and you'd get 16 teams, that's a little tough with 16 boys and 16 girls teams to make everything happen. And I think it's tough. Like if you look at the US, the state side, how they do it versus how we do it, it's hard. We would have a game on a Thursday night, used to be, and then 2 on Friday and then 1 on Saturday. That's 4 games in 3 days. And that's tough to do. And then they went to, I think it was 2 on Thursday and 1 Friday, 1 Saturday. And that's great. But, I think going to 3 games is nice. Obviously, if you can get that 1, 2, 3, or 4 spot, you get a bye. And so I like it. I like that there's 12 teams in it. I think that it gives an opportunity, like a Spruce Grove who went and won 4A this year, an opportunity to hang a banner in a year that would be a little tougher, maybe in the 5A. And so I think it's a good thing. Yeah, I do. For us, whether it's 4A or 5A, I think, in the end, it maybe doesn't really matter. I mean, for us, we're competing, in either category. But yeah, I don't see any downside to it.
I think that's well put, and I fully agree with you. I think having the 5A ability to reduce the size of the best teams, being in a 12-team as opposed to a 16-team event, and you hit it right on the head, Alan. Like at no other point, unless you go to certain tournaments, do you ever play 2 games in one day. But to be vying for the ultimate championship in a province and have to play 2 games in one day, that really stretches, I think, what the athletes are supposed to be doing, which is to be putting their best on the court against the best opponents that they can possibly play against.
Yeah, for sure.
So 4A or 5A, this is 3 in a row, correct?
No, we had a break last year. We had 3 in a row. And then last year we were basically had a young group of kids. I think I had 6 grade 10s on the team and rolled with them, and now they're all grade 11s. So yeah, last year we were in the provincial championship. We lost to Spruce Grove in Foothills. I think in the quarterfinals, they went on to lose in the 4A championship game to Scona. So we had a good showing, but just a really young team. Pushed Spruce Grove to the limit. I think we were down 4 or 6 with a few minutes left. And anyways, yeah, so last year was a break, but we did with Delaney in grade 10, 11, and 12, we were able to win 3 in a row. And then last year was not. And then this year we're starting, hopefully working on another 3-peat. So
pretty exciting thought at that. And Alan, talk about this year's team. You had the youngsters from last year maturing. I'll give you a quick observation. One of the things that Raymond and McGrath and Cardston are noted for are all-around athletes, multi-sport athletes. But what one thing that just jumped right out at me, having seen your team for the first time this year, was I don't want to use the term just athletic, because I think that's a kind of a nebulous term that I really don't know what that means, other than watching your girls play. They all can run, and they all have their fitness was excellent. Their court speed was excellent. Your systems are very, very good. And you had several players that could really shoot the three out of your sets, and you look for each other very, very well. Excellent teamwork. But what struck me was the competitiveness and the court speed that your girls possess. Does that come from being, well, number one, good athletes, but number two, multi-sport athletes?
Yeah, I think it could, it could come from that. But I think, just generally speaking, I think that this year we were lucky to have a really deep team of young athletes, no seniors. So you've got kids that are really competing to play. And I had 11 kids on the team, and I was, this is a unique year for us in that, especially in a small town, you don't always have a deep team. You might have, a deep 2 or 3, but
right.
This year we had a unique situation in Raymond that just came together with 11 kids that really deserved to play. I think I had 7 grade 11s and 4 grade 10s. And I had 11 kids that deserve to play and that can all develop and play in the future. I mean, my 11th kid on the bench at the start of the year is a grade 10 kid that is long and athletic, maybe the most athletic kid in the whole group. And she played JV. They won a JV championship and shoots it really well. A great volleyball kid. And she's 10th, 11th man. And, I've got to find a way for her to be part of it next year. And you didn't even see her as part of this group. So in practice, they go hard. This is the first year, like in previous years, I had my starters against the backups, and there's no chance. Like I had to just mix them up. This year I can put my starters against my subs, and I think the subs are going to win. And that's the kind of grittiness that they have. Obviously the starters, do have some upside, some, there's a reason they're a starter, but the backups, whether we're doing a shooting drill or whether we're practicing offensive sets, whether we're just playing, 3-on-3 or 1-on-1, the subs are consistently beating my starters this year. And the competitive level has been, something that's I haven't experienced before as a coach. And that probably you saw that going in. And I think teams that schemed against us, they counted on stopping, a Hayden Hall or Pippa, limiting them. And then, it's funny, in that provincial final, I'm watching Quincy Baines and Elle and kids coming off the bench, knock down threes and take it to the hole and finish, with Hayden having 3 points against McGrath and Pippa having 11 when they averaged in the 20s. And we're still spanking that team. And it's because those other kids are so good, and you can't focus. I mean, you can try to focus on the top 2 kids, but it's just not possible with this team. It's the deepest team I've ever had. It's a competitive from top to bottom. They're probably the most competitive team I've ever had. I think with some of Delaney's teams in grade 10, 11, and 12, you can argue. I mean, talk to certain individuals in Raymond, they'll argue that Delaney's grade 10 year was the best team we've ever seen. I look at Delaney's grade 12 year as the most firepower that we've ever had but that was with 3 or 4 kids, but really high end kids. And then this year, I think they're probably the deepest, maybe the best team. Just top to bottom. We in those other teams, we'd never had a 6'3" post player that can stretch to the 3 and knock it down and can be really dominant on the boards. Obviously those teams had Delaney, which is an X factor, but Pippa shot the ball probably better. She was 60, 40, 80 this year. So, and high volume. So 60 from 2, 40 from 3, and 80 from free throw line. And then led our team in assists and steals. And then defensively was our best defender on ball. And so you just can't, there's just a difference between those two. But, who's bringing the most value to the team. I mean, Delaney could definitely just carry a team by herself, and that's a unique thing and a nice thing for a coach to know. But just we'll see. I mean, this team's young; they've got another year to get under their belt, and so before somebody told me early on they said, hey.
All right. Seems like we had a little bit of an issue there with the rest of the Alan Gibb interview. But if you want to hear the rest, you can find it wherever you find your podcasts at Hoop City Show, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. I did not get lost. You got lost. Obviously, yes. Alan Gibb, he's from Raymond, Alberta, southern Alberta, but his daughter Delaney Gibb is really lighting it up in the NCAA women's bracket for BYU. I believe she had this would have been recorded on Tuesday, which means the night before she had a career high in 3-pointers made with 7 and is absolutely torching everybody. All right. Like it cannot be expressed enough how a Alberta girl is kicking everybody else's butt. All right. Like it is almost unfathomable to me, because I'm a guy that grew up in Alberta and in Canada, where hockey is so central to everything that we do. And then to see the absolute dominance that someone from Alberta is putting up against people where it's a lot more inspired to play sports like basketball or football or anything like that. And she's just lighting the world on fire. The best player on that team. I mean, like she was the best player in Canada. All right. Like that's where we are here. Her last game was Thursday, March 26th against Stanford. She played 36 minutes. She had 27 points, 4 assists, 7 boards. Sounds pretty dominant to me. This is only her second year at BYU, by the way. She's playing today at 3. Oh, no, not today. The 30th. So that would be Monday at 3 p.m. Make sure you catch that. They're playing against Kansas. But yeah, this season, 32 minutes, 18 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals a game, 4.5 turnovers. Not great, but she's getting it done from 3 and from the field. And I think we're only going to see what she's doing increase so much. I mean, I can't get over what I'm looking at here. 7 of 11 from 3, 11 of 19 totally against the Missouri Tigers, and 32 minutes of action. Like that's a great night. Obviously, comes up big against after rebounds. That's the word. Basketball show. You'd think I remember the word rebound. She rebounds after an unfortunate night against AAMU, or the Alabama A&M Bulldogs. Only 11 points in 26 minutes. Not a particularly great shooting night, but she rebounds big and is really putting Alberta on the map. So I'm hoping that in the NC2A, as we call it around the office here, that they'll start looking to other places in Canada more for the collegiate talent, other than just places like Toronto, which is an absolute basketball player factory. I mean, SGA, reigning MVP, again, just got to put that out there. He's from Hamilton, Hamilton, Ontario. That's where my family lives. Fun fact. But yes, I'm really hoping that goes. How many Alberta players are or were in March Madness from Brew Crew. I don't actually have the list in front of me, but I know Paul gave me the list of just Albertans playing in the NCAA, and it was, I believe it was 22 ladies and I think about 18 men. And Long Island University, their top 2 scorers are Canadian, but they are not from Alberta. So I unfortunately did not put to memory where our Alberta talent was from, Brew Crew, but I can go and find that for you shortly. I wish he had emailed it to me, but alas, Paul gave me the paper copy of Alberta talent in the NC2A. And we're talking Div 1. We're not talking Div 2 with that. We're going to take a break here. This is Hoop City with Paul Sturck. Coming up, I'll be breaking down the NBA MVP race with graphics. Very excited. I made a whole new background for it and everything. So I'm pretty amped up. Hope you guys are amped up too. This is Hoop City with Paul Sturck with guest host Josh Fenwick on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry. We did it.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
Welcome back to the big program, Hoop City with Paul Sir. I know, again, I'm not Paul Sir. I can only do my best imitation of him. I'm Josh Fenwick. I'm his producer. I'm also guest hosting today and next week on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Thank you so much for joining me. Get in on the conversation. Text line 833-401-1440. And if you want to see this next segment, because there is some visuals involved, you can find us on Sports 1440 AM on YouTube, Sports 1440 on X, or you can find us on Instagram, Sports 1440 AM. It's going to be a tougher watch on Instagram as it goes vertical, but you can find us anywhere that you can stream video. I promise. I promise you. So I do want to talk about, this is probably the most compelling storyline in the NBA right now, which is who's going to be the MVP, because it is really a tight race, and NBA Twitter will try to tell you so many different things. And so, I mean, is it between Luka and SGA? Is it between Jokic and Luka? Is it between Wemby and SGA, or Wemby and Jokic? You know, there's so many questions that have to get answered. And so, again, here we are. Our wonderful digital producer, Josh Fenwick, made up these graphics from Hoopology. Great follow on X, and a fantastic website. They have data going back, I believe it's 7 years. Or maybe even longer, because you can find certain things like 2016 Steph and whatever. And it's for efficiency and points and on-off numbers. And you can find scatter plots and all these great things where teams rank in comparison historically. And it's really in-depth. I think it's one of my go-to websites right now. So I want to lead us off with Luka Doncic, who, again, has been on an absolute tear. Now, this is not perfect, the Hoopology website, because for me personally, I like per 100 the best. Per 100 possessions, it gives, to me, like, it's right around the pace of the NBA. So eventually, you know, this player does get to 100 possessions. This is per 75. Maybe that's better because it's more condensed, but I think the longer you can stretch things out, the better. Also, per 36 is way better than per 48, because nobody plays 48 minutes in the NBA anymore. 36 is really like the average. I mean, SGA averages 33 minutes a game. So here we are. Luka, number one scorer in the league currently. And these are his on-off points, with teammates divided by their minutes that they play on the court with Luka versus off. And so his number one teammate in minutes, surprisingly, is DeAndre Ayton, who also, shout out to DeAndre Ayton, has not taken a three-pointer this year. But you can see the categories we have are points, true shooting, paint field goal percentage, three-point percentage, mid-range field goal percentage, and assists, the assist numbers on and off. That could be a percentage, but just, do these teammates have the ball more, or do they have the ball less? And where is the ball going from these guys? And so Luka obviously also leads the league in usage percentage, I believe. And so he has the ball a lot. So the assist numbers are way down for everyone on his team, which also makes sense because you want the best player to have the ball in their hands. And his assist numbers are way up. But the efficiency doesn't really get much better with him on the floor across all three zones. The paint field goal percentage, it does get way better. I mean, DeAndre Ayton, he's shooting a better like 6.5% in the paint when Luka's on the ice, or on the floor, because he opens things up so much. But even like the efficiency totally of the team is down when he's on the court. They're taking less shots and they're making less shots. That's a problem to me. Also, true shooting percentage, that's my favorite percentage. I think it's better than effective field goal percentage because this takes into account everything, and I like the math that goes into it better. And with effective field goal percentage, they times free throws by half a point, but with true shooting, it's 0.44 because not all not all free throws are created equal. They're not all and ones, or they're not all, shooting fouls where they miss the shot. Like there are techs in there and things of the such. So to me, true shooting is a better form of getting you a player's efficiency. And so sort of across the board, player scoring is down, but I think this is the big one. Austin Reeves, when he's on the court with Luka, he really does fall to that second option. Technically third option. He averages 19 points a game when he's on the court with Luka. When Luka is off the court and Austin Reeves is on, he's averaging a whopping 32 points. Austin Reeves is the second option on this Lakers team, which is insane because LeBron James is also on this team. But like LeBron's numbers, his true shooting is way better when Luka's on the court, and his paint field goal percentage. He gets a lot of paint looks when Luka's there. They can run some pick and rolls. He's super smart, so he can cut through the back. I love everything about LeBron James's game as a third option. He's a smart cookie, that guy, in case you guys didn't know. But to me, like the amount of red that I'm seeing on this is a bit of a problem, because when you're on the court and you're a player of Luka's ilk, you should be making teammates that much better. But to see all the red in here, and the only people that are really profiting are a rim runner like DeAndre Ayton and LeBron James, one of, if not the greatest player in NBA history. Maybe that's more of a testament to what the Lakers really are, and maybe they won't make a big run in the playoffs because they don't have all the help they need. I mean, I do think they're quite squishy on the inside, but like I can see Luka himself is so good. He's averaging 40 this month, which basically hasn't been done since James Harden in 2019. But this is a lot of recency. I think when you look back at the year as a whole, Austin Reeves has been really, really, really impressive when Luka and LeBron are out, and he's sort of willed the Lakers to a bunch of wins, and he can find his own shots. Whereas now he sort of falls into a Chris Bosh sort of look on the Heatles. It's like you got your spots. You sort of have to change your game when Luka is on the court, and I don't think like that's conducive to the way that the best look of the Lakers are. Now we're gonna move over here to the man, the myth, the legend, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the good Canadian boy, as he's known around my apartment. He's second in the league in scoring. The assist numbers again are down, but they're way down. But he's a good facilitator of the ball. The efficiency isn't really that much better for anyone else that's on the court. It's better for guys that really need it to be better. Lou Dort, his true shooting percentage is through the roof. Cason Wallace has taken no mid-ranges on the court with Luka Doncic. That's sort of or I guess he hasn't taken no mid-ranges. He has made no mid-ranges because Shai takes up so much of that area. And something that Paul and I have talked about a lot this season is how good Shai is at now getting to his spots and getting to his spots comfortably. And he's really good in that mid-range area. He sort of takes that away from a lot of other players. And even with him, but because the problem with the mid-range shot, and I love the mid-range shot, don't get me wrong, is that even when you're covering it, it doesn't open up that much space through the rest of the floor, depending on the defensive zone that you're playing against. Because if you're playing against a 3-2 zone, then they're probably going to collapse on you a little better. And then you get a good look in the corner. And so like the 3-point numbers are a little better from the bad 3-point shooters on the team. Like Lou Dort, who's a 30% 3-point shooter, Cason Wallace, and Chet Holmgren, who are all 30% 3-point shooters, shoot better. Chet is almost a 40% from 3 when Shai's on the floor with him. That's good. And this is a guy that's tall, and he does have that outside shot. And so I'm a fan of him opening it up from the 3 for the worst shooters, but then it sort of hinders a guy like a Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, Jalen Williams, the other one, the bench guy who's really good, sort of hinders his ability to get more shots because they're more focused on covering him when Shea's on the floor because they don't want him getting a 3-point shot. But it's good that his teammates are knocking it down. But again, SGA himself is so efficient. Like we're talking 2016 Steph true shooting numbers on more points per game. And again, 2016 Steph won the MVP unanimously. So I think Shea also has it. I think Shea has the MVP locked up, unfortunately. I'm not saying I don't want to give it to him. I want to see Canada, succeed in the NBA. But I just don't know if I can do it. The next guy, now this is insane, and this is what I want to see. This is a lot of green. This is Nikola Jokic. He plays a lot of minutes for the Denver Nuggets, and he's still eligible for the MVP. I think if he misses 2 games, then he will be ineligible because he have his hyperextended knee, which is too bad. He elevates the bottom guys on the roster a lot more. You see it with like Christian Braun, who when Jokic is off the court, he averages 5.4 points per game. When Jokic is on the court, he finds this guy. He's a 15-point. We're talking about a 10-point jump. That's fantastic. Jamal Murray, who's really good by himself, is even better when Jokic is on the court. He does such a good job of finding these guys, and their efficiency numbers are way up. The only person that isn't up by like a significant margin is Jamal Murray, who's 3.5% worse in the paint. But like Cam Johnson, he's 20% better. Christian Braun, he's 37% better. Tim Hardaway Jr., he's 19% better. Like Aaron Gordon, he's 6% better, but they haven't got to spend a lot of time together. We're talking 509 minutes because Aaron Gordon's been so injured this season. But again, made to play with Jokic. And then the 3-point percentage for everybody is really up, except for big-time shooter Cam Johnson. And Christian Braun, who's not really a 3-point threat, but Cam Johnson is, in case you don't remember him on the Suns, where he was absolutely sick from 3 and a big reason that Suns team went to the finals. But everyone's efficiency numbers are really, really up. And that's what Jokic does best. He is a floor raiser for the rest of his team. And you can see like how poor the team is with him off the court. And you really see the deficiencies, which is a big problem with the Nuggets when you think they're gonna come out of the West. Because if Jokic isn't a guy who's playing 48 minutes a game or 42 minutes a game in these defensive battles in the NBA playoffs, then it sort of spells trouble for the Nuggets, especially if Jamal Murray is not having an on game. So those are the 2 things that really like work for him. However, luckily for Jokic, it's a regular season award, so you don't really have to worry about what they're going to look like in the playoffs. And then the other thing is he's a center averaging a triple-double who's leading the league in rebounds and assists, which I don't think has been done since Wilt Chamberlain. There's a lot of talk about Wilt Chamberlain this season about people doing things that nobody's done since Wilt. And when you're put in that category, you're like, man, this is historic. Unfortunately, I think all 4 of these guys have been doing stuff that, since Wilt or never done before. Luka's setting all sorts of records with the Lakers, who have a very storied history. One, a history with Wilt, and then you have guys like Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe Bryant, and he's doing things that none of those guys have ever done with the team. So that's very impressive in and of itself. On our next slide here, we have Jaylen Brown, who I would have to put like 5th on my MVP ballot, unfortunately. But what he's doing in Boston is unreal. I mean, this is a guy who just a few seasons ago, we were still making fun of for not being able to dribble with his left hand, and he was in the NBA. And now he's a guy averaging, 30 points a night on a Celtics team that we thought was going to be rebuilding or they were going to have an off year, much like the Pacers have this year with no Tyrese Halliburton. And he said, you know what? No, I'm not going to let that happen. And started averaging 30 points a game, increased his efficiency. And the only problem is that the good players on his team get significantly worse. I'm not really worried about Derek White. They spend so much time on the floor together. Derek White's job is to lock things down. He's averaging 16.1 points per game per 75 possessions with Jaylen Brown on the floor. Peyton Pritchard, 16. And they've played, Peyton Pritchard and Derek White are within 6 minutes of each other with Jaylen Brown on the floor. So he is most successful when those guys are on the floor together. Now, even though their points are down, their efficiency in the paint is way up. And Derek White, way better mid-range shooter when he's on the floor. Unfortunately, he doesn't really bump up. Jaylen Brown doesn't bump up the 3-point percentage for all these guys because he's really the only perimeter threat except for Peyton Pritchard. When Peyton Pritchard's there or Sam Hauser, like these guys can shoot the skin off the ball. But other than that, they don't traditionally have to worry about them when Jaylen Brown's on the floor because Jaylen Brown, again, has a high usage percentage. Jason Tatum's come back. When JT and Jaylen Brown are on the floor, Jaylen Brown elevates Jason Tatum. Now, that shouldn't be a surprise because they've been playing together for, what would it be now, almost 10 years? Like, it's really weird to think about a year where, like, Jason Tatum is supposed to be the franchise guy for the Celtics, and he's playing second fiddle to Jaylen Brown, who, again, could not dribble with his left hand a couple seasons ago. What he's done for the Celtics in a year where we thought they were going to be at worst, probably a play-in team, and at best going to be like a 6 seed. What he's done for the Celtics is absolutely unreal. But when you go up against history like Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic and SGA, it makes it really hard to say, wow, this guy is the most valuable player in the league. Sorry, Michael Wilbon. I know that's who you had. Now, this is my winner. This is Victor Wembanyama. There's a lot of green on here. Everyone else's points are down, but their efficiency goes way through the roof because of that gravity I talked about in our opening segment. He has the gravity on the pick and roll, and I forget who put the video out, my apologies, but they broke down his gravity and said, well, the Spurs are generating the most corner 3-point shots in NBA history, and that's because Wemby is dragging 3 guys to the rim with him when he hits a pick and roll, which is literally the easiest play in basketball. And if every time that he sets a pick and he starts rolling to the basket, he has 3 guys on him, that opens the floor up so much. And it's one of those things where, like, numbers don't really do justice to what it is Victor Wembanyama gives to the Spurs, as well as being the best two-way player in the league. Even though he's not from this planet, quote, Jaylen Brown, he opens so much stuff up. The paint, like Steph Castle, who is a good player, the second best player, third best player on the Spurs, and is not a good 3-point shooter, but is really good around the rim. If he's shooting, which this is true, 15.8% better per 75 possessions when Victor Wembanyama is on the court with him, that is such a huge advantage because now all of a sudden the Spurs, Mitch Johnson is doing a great job with this. They're passing the ball around so much, much like the Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker Spurs. They have such good ball movement. If Wemby is dragging 3 defenders with him to one side of the court, all of a sudden Steph Castle just has to cut, or De'Aaron Fox just has to cut, or Julian Champagny just has to cut, and they get an easy 2-point lay-in. Like, that is such a huge advantage for the Spurs. And, like, obviously the easy stop is, well, we got to stop sending 3 defenders with Wemby. But then what happens? We just lob the ball up to Wemby basically, and either he slams it home and catches the lob midair, or he just puts his hand up, which is about 4 feet taller than anyone else in the NBA can jump, and goes, all right, I have this and I'll just lay it in. Or he can kick it out to the corner because he still has a defender on him. And then a nice open 3-point look. Wemby is just like he's such an eye test guy that if people aren't watching Spurs games, it makes sense why he would not take this home this year. But like he said, with the comments that he made, hey, like, defense is 50% of the game, and I'm going to do my best to, by the end of the season, make sure it's not a debate anymore. So Victor Wembanyama is my MVP because he elevates everyone else on the team in an efficiency way, and also does so much stuff that you can only tell with your eyes. So anyways, that was Josh Fenwick's MVP breakdown in the NBA. Text us 833-401-1440 if you have thoughts on what it was I was saying. Coming up on the big program, we're going to be joined by Andrew Schlecht of The Athletic, covers the OKC Thunder. We'll see what who he thinks the MVP should be, talk about NBA expansion and so much more. This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! We did it!
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
This is an interview I'm very excited for. Not Dan Devine. My apologies. Andrew Schlecht from The Athletic, covers the Oklahoma City Thunder, also does the newsletter for The Athletic, I believe. Andrew, thanks so much for taking the time this morning. Welcome to Hoop City with Paul Sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So work at The Athletic, you cover the Oklahoma City Thunder, correct?
Yes, I do.
All right. So SGA, we know what a historic season he's having. Is he your MVP in your eyes?
I think when you look at the season overall, he is the MVP. Now, the Thunder have been strange this season. It's almost you have these different sections of their season. You have the 24-1 start where it felt like he's like imminently the MVP. Is this team going to challenge for 74 wins, or what's going to happen with this team? They fall off a little bit, some of it due to injury. They lose to the Spurs 3 times, and it feels like the sky is falling. And then they've kind of rebounded over this last stretch where they had a 12-game winning streak, and they beat a lot of really good teams. I do think that when you look at the season overall, that Shai has had the best season of anybody on the best team. I think if you look at the last 25 to 30 games, it's probably Wemby. If you look at the last 15 games, you could probably consider Luka Doncic. But if you're looking at the season in totality, I think that Shai has been consistently the best player in the league so far. So yes, I do think that Shai is the deserving MVP.
Hey, you know what? As a Canadian, that makes me very happy to hear that he might be going back to back.
Yeah.
You do bring up the 24-1 start with the Thunder, though, and I think an important thing about that is that Jalen Williams, he was unavailable for basically that entire stretch. And then he came back and the Thunder sort of started to struggle. Is J-Dub like sort of coming back into the guy that you saw last season, or like what's his effect on this OKC team that maybe makes them look a touch more human?
Yeah, so he's been back for 3 games, and when he first came back from his injury, from his wrist, he had surgery on his wrist. His wrist wasn't right yet, and he wasn't shooting threes really. His handle was not what it was. You know, defensively, he was still there. He's actually really progressed as a passer this season, just because he's just had to. But I would say now, with him returning, he's starting to look more like himself. He told me yesterday that he feels more like himself, that his wrist feels back 100%. He feels like he's trusting his leg a little bit more. I think perhaps like whenever he did come back, it was a pretty big adjustment for the team, because he's someone that is going to take a lot of shots, going to hold a lot of possessions. But overall, like without J-Dub, they're not going to win the NBA title again. And so they need to reintegrate him back into the team, slide everybody back into their other roles, and like get some rhythm going into the playoffs. But I do think that when he did initially return, just the fact that he wasn't himself was a part of that, a part of their struggle. And part of it too is like San Antonio is really, really good. And there's no shame in losing to San Antonio, even though they lost them 3 times. There's no shame in that. That's a really good basketball team, and somebody that like they're a puzzle to figure out. Wemby is really difficult to deal with. If you also go back and look at some of those Spurs games, the Spurs shot the ball really, really well, probably unsustainably well against the Thunder in those games. But I do think that overall, Dub as like a versatile defender, as a secondary ball handler, as their second best scorer overall, as a guy who gets them playing faster, they just have to have him, playing at his peak if they want to repeat.
Yeah, hey, it makes a lot of sense to me. Hoop City with Paul Sir here on Sports 1440, joined by Andrew Schlecht of The Athletic, covers the Oklahoma City Thunder. You bring up going for back-to-back, going for a repeat, and the Spurs losses and everything. What do you think the one deficiency of this team could be that would cost them a second title?
I think it's their offense will go through these lulls, and it feels like they do it collectively, where they just can't shoot it. We saw that a little bit in Boston. We saw it in the first half last night against Chicago, where they just can't make threes. Now, go back and look at their percentages in the playoffs last year. For the most part, they were very bad, and they have like a pretty big margin for error just because their defense is that good and Shea is that good. But I do think it's going to be shooting. They have added Jared McCain, who has been stellar since he got to the Thunder. Isaiah Joe is a much improved player and a guy who I think can stay on the floor a little bit more come playoff time as well. But I do think outside shooting will be their Achilles heel. If they don't repeat, they lose in the conference finals, they lose in the NBA finals, I think that we will look at the three-point shooting as probably the culprit there for them. Other than that, I do think that it's not only that, but it's who's taking the threes. I think Boston did an amazing job the other night of making guys like Luguentz Dort and Alex Caruso be the ones to take the open threes. And sometimes Caruso will go through stretches where he hits 50% from three. He'll also go through stretches where he's hitting 15% from three. And so just the streakiness of those guys, could be the difference in another NBA title.
It's interesting that you bring up that outside shooting, because the feeling I get when I watch Thunder games is their defensive rebounding. I think when a guy like Chet, and I know Hartenstein's been in and out of the lineup a lot this year, they don't really have that guy that can really crash the boards, which is what I saw when they were losing to, or why games were so close with the Nuggets, or why they were losing to the Spurs, is because they have those bigger bodies that can sort of crash the offensive glass.
The rebounding has definitely been something that's been a problem. It's not been as big a problem this season. Hartenstein fixes a lot of that. And I actually think that Chet, and you can even back this up with some numbers, but he's been a better rebounder this season, period. Now, Chet did not play well against San Antonio, and that's something that he's got to kind of level up if they do, in fact, match up with him in the playoffs. But that used to be like their biggest problem, but I think it's been less of a problem this season.
Oh, all right. I just want to sort of go to the NBA as a whole because big news like this week, NBA expansion, it's officially happening. Seattle and Vegas getting bids for teams. I was wondering if you think this is the right time for the NBA to expand.
Yeah, I think that inevitably they were going to. One, I think they want an influx of cash. If you could just bring in $15 billion into your business, would you say no to that? I don't think so. And the owners certainly aren't going to say no to that. They voted for it at the Board of Governors meeting. Like they all want that inflow of cash. Part of me just wonders if there's just bigger things to solve for the NBA rather than adding more teams to it. I do think that clearly, like the biggest thing for the NBA right now is just making money, which has always kind of been the thing with this league. But if it were me, I would be trying to solve the problem of like they play too many games, or maybe even you adjust the minutes of the games, because I just think like the product itself would be so much better if there were less games. And I wish that they would take a look at that. I know because this has to do with money, and the reason that they wouldn't go less games is because it would take money out of people's pockets. But to me, like the overall product could be better if there were less games. As far as like timing for expansion, it's probably fine. These teams are going to be really bad though. And I think, if you're a Western Conference team, you actually might be excited about that because you're going to add 2 bottom of the barrel teams to the Western Conference, and you're probably going to boot the Minnesota Timberwolves to the East. So I do think that teams will like that. But we'll see. I do think that there's enough talent in the league, but is it going to be spread evenly? No. We look at a team like the Brooklyn Nets right now, and there's just not much there for that team. And these expansion teams could look worse than that. And so I'll be really, really curious to see like how long it takes these teams to get on their feet. Because like you look at the Bobcats, who were like one of the last expansion teams, that team never really got it together. Like that version of the team, it took them so long to get their footing. And some of it's going to be who's the owner, who do they select for the general manager. All of that's really going to matter. But I think people could actually look at after the expansion happens, and you look a year down the road, and it's like, why did we do this? I think that those think pieces can write themselves today.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. I was wondering, do you have an idea of who might be the best player that's available in these expansion drafts? Like, do the Memphis Grizzlies use this as a way to maybe get out of the Ja Morant business or anything like that?
Yeah, that would be really interesting. There's a lot of players. So we have to think about it in this will happen in 2028. So I think like Ja Morant will need a new contract by then. You look at like the guys for the Sacramento Kings, like they're going to need, those guys will either be off their current deals or need contract extension. So they won't be eligible really for it. Joel Embiid is one where if they left him unprotected, would an expansion team take him on? I mean, I think the answer would probably be no. As far as like the best player, I would probably look at like who are the teams that are the most stacked, because if you look back at 2004 when the Bobcats did their expansion draft, the best player they selected was Gerald Wallace. And Gerald was on the Sacramento Kings, who had a really, really deep roster at the time. That was a really good Kings team. And I would look at the Thunder. I would look at San Antonio. Not only do you have their current rosters, but like the Thunder have, 2 draft picks in this next draft. they're going to have, good players available. So it's probably going to be one of those guys like Nikola Topic. I don't know if they would leave him unprotected. But I would say like he could be a guy that's left unprotected just because the Thunder don't have a ton of information about him. You could look at even like a Jared McCain or somebody like that if the Thunder don't give him an extension. So it would probably be somebody like that. I'm not necessarily suggesting that those guys will be unprotected, but it'll be a player like that where it's these super stacked teams that need to keep their core together or need to keep their rotation intact. And they're going to have to like leave somebody with potential. It's kind of like the Gerald Wallace piece off of there. So that would be my guess as to what that will look like. But it's still, it's a couple years down the road, and the league changes so fast that it's just really hard to predict.
No, absolutely. All right, this is the last one for you, Andrew. I just want to know, like, there's a lot of discourse with this year, particularly after the injury to Cade Cunningham with a collapsed lung, where you fall on the 65 game rule to be eligible for awards in the NBA.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this coin. I think some people, obviously you can look at the Cade Cunningham piece of it and be like, man, this sucks. Why would we do this? But also look at Jokic and Wemby, who are playing a lot of basketball right now, like two of the best players in the NBA, who, if this rule didn't exist, we would not be seeing this much Victor Wembanyama right now. We would not be seeing this much Nikola Jokic. So there's certainly an element to like, hey, this is working. We are actually seeing more of these guys than we would have previously. It's just a shame that this happened to Cade. Now, any sort of rule like this is going to have unintended consequences that are going to be bad for somebody. And this year it happens to be Cade. It would be somebody else if it wasn't Cade. I think overall what they set out to accomplish is working. I think players are trying to play as much as they can. There's always unfortunate things that happen in the league, with players like what happened with Cade.
Yeah.
And you'd like to see them maybe make an exception for Cade to make an All-NBA team. Like maybe one thing they could do is like keep the 65 game rule, but you can't make the first team All-NBA. Like maybe you could make second team All-NBA, which would still, get a lot of guys to their contract qualifiers. And lucky for Cade, like he has his contract extension. He's not, this isn't going to affect his bottom dollar, which is really good, but it will affect reward stuff, and it's just kind of the unfortunate nature of it. And I think maybe you tweak it, but overall, I would say like the 65 game rule has worked for the most part. Like it's getting guys on the court more.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think even someone that was really the main driving force behind implementing this rule was Kawhi Leonard, and he's playing unreal basketball down the stretch right now, and a lot of basketball as well. And that's really, really fun to watch.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today. Thanks so much for cutting some time out. This was great.
Yeah. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right. Great. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the games.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Bye. That was Andrew Schlecht from The Athletic here on Hoop City with Paul Sir on your Sports Leader Sports 1440. We're going to go take a quick break here, and when we come back, we will we'll wrap up the show, talk a little more NBA, talk a little NC2A, and so much more. So keep it locked here on Sports 1440.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is the #1 heating and cooling company for people who want heating and cooling, because you'll save a bundle by bundling. Then you can use hot, cold, hot, cold. Common thermostat, do what you're told. Turn up the heat, turn up the cold, to the vent start pushing out tornadoes. Bundle my furnace with some AC. Gonna get a new from Legacy. Oh yeah. Save a bundle when you bundle your new furnace and AC from Legacy today. Plus no payments and no interest for 1 year. That's how you build your legacy. Legacy Heating and Cooling.
The weather doesn't care about your shift or your schedule. Carhartt Rain Defender sweatshirts let you battle back against the ever-changing elements. Carhartt's durable, water-repellent technology lets light rain beat up and roll right off.
Layer up and stay on the job longer without getting drenched. Get your Carhartt Rain Defender sweatshirts at all 3 of our Edmonton job site workwear locations.
Job site workwear, tough different tough jobs.
Saturday mornings live on Sports 1440, powered by Subaru. Welcome to Uncommon. Visit Subaru.ca.
After spending winter inside, you've decided your home needs an upgrade. And there's no better time than during Buy More, Save More at Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries. Unparalleled quality, unmatched savings store-wide. Need inspiration? Talk to our expert professional in-home design team. And remember, the more you buy, the more you save. Buy more, save more at both premier Lazy Boy Furniture Galleries locations, South Edmonton Common and the West End, and their factory outlet clearance center at 152nd Street and 137th Ave.
Take the pain out of airport parking with Park to Go. Your first-class parking experience. Book self-serve and valet parking and save up to 30%. Book now with promo code RADIO. That's RADIO.
Sports fans know great teams show up when it matters. On Saturday, June 13th, Edmonton Riders are doing just that. Ride for Dad Edmonton rolls out from Blackjack's Roadhouse in Nisku. Registration and breakfast from 7:30 to 9:45. Kickstands up at 10. The ride raises funds and awareness in the fight against prostate cancer, with funds staying right here in Edmonton. Step up, ride together, make a difference. Register now at ridefordad.ca. Ride for Dad Edmonton, brought to you by Sports 1440.
This is Hoop City with Paul Sir on Sports 1440.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry. We did it.
Here's your host, Paul Sir.
12:43 here in Edmonton. Welcome back to Hoop City with Paul Sir. I'm Josh Fenwick, sitting in for Paul today and next week. Thank you so much for joining me. Coming up on Sports 1440, it is the pre and post game show hosted by Andrew Walker. And Josh Fenwick Day here on Sports 1440 continues, as I will be riding shotgun with him, producing the program as well. We just had Andrew Schlecht on from The Athletic. A very, very great insight. Covers the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we talked about NBA expansion. Manny texted in. He said, we're texting back and forth about me riding solo today. And then he said, someday you should quit your night job. Ha ha. Manny, good news. I already did. This is my one job now. We talked about NBA expansion and, Seattle, the city of Seattle and Las Vegas having bids and their prices being somewhere around the $8 billion to $10 billion range. And whether or not this is the right time to do it, regardless. And also, depending on when the bids get in and accepted, we could see the expansion team sooner than usual. So I think the interesting part of this is Seattle is probably going to be the Supersonics again. There might be some legal things that surround that stop them from having the trademark of the Seattle Supersonics, but I'm sure that will get worked out between the ownership group that will buy the Seattle team and the owners of the trademark around that. So the interesting part about the Seattle Supersonics is, will Kevin Durant end his career as a Sonic? Because obviously he's on the Rockets right now, and he signed a 2-year extension with them that would end after the season of 27-28. That would be right in line-ish with when the Supersonics or the Seattle team theoretically would be coming back. And for one of the greatest players in NBA history, obviously Like, it'd be sort of a cool storybook ending to his career if he ended his career with the team that drafted him, even though, we know all that happened with the Sonics. They moved to Oklahoma City, and then they draft Russell Westbrook and James Harden. They drafted 3 MVPs, absolutely unreal, and are now NBA finalists, NBA champions, NBA finalists not long after they became the Oklahoma City Thunder. So, yeah, I think it sort of works out all the way around that, like, yeah, Kevin Durant, if he doesn't force his way out of Houston and just sort of stays on his, 20 point per game trajectory that he's on, and, just being a good scorer and sometime taking the second option role or the third option role on this Rockets team, which I think they will probably want. I think it'd be cool for him to go back. And obviously, again, he's a good scorer. That isn't really going to leave you. It didn't even leave Carmelo at the end of his career. Like, he was putting up buckets with the Trailblazers and things like that. I mean, right now, Kevin Durant, he's 37. He'll be 38 in September, which means he'd be turning 40 that year that he'd be a free agent. And I can't imagine he hanging him up around 40, although, like, you know what? I've been wrong, but I think with the history of now LeBron James and Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers in sports, retiring earlier isn't really a thing that happens isn't really going to be a thing happening moving forward when you're of such an elite talent like a Kevin Durant. I mean, or Udonis Haslem. Shout out to my boy. And I really think that would be the perfect way to end Durant's career. I mean, I know it's filled with controversy, and these last couple years have been, or I guess this decade has just been him going from team to team, trying to win another championship authentically, I'll put in quotations, because we know everything that happened when he went to Golden State. Oh, he joined the 73-9 Warriors. Like, this is the weakest move by a superstar of all time, whatever. And I think he's trying to correct his legacy. But I think if in the first year of expansion, and Andrew said it, and I totally agree with him, that the teams would be bad. They'd be maybe worse than the Brooklyn Nets are now. It'd be nice for the NBA and an NBA expansion team to land a superstar, even if it is an aging superstar at that, and he wants to put that nice bookend on his career. So that's something to look to. If we look to today, the NBA slate of games is pretty nice. I tried my darndest to get a San Antonio Spurs guest on today. It was really tough, though, because they're on the road in Milwaukee, and tip-off is at 1 p.m. So will the Spurs just continue doing what they've been doing since the beginning of the year? If you listen to this today and only listen to this today, you would think I'm the biggest Spurs fan in the world. I am a Raptors fan. So thank you for giving me Kawhi Leonard in 2019. And it's the greatest sporting year of my life. But I love what they do down there, their culture, the fact that their superstar cares so much about everything. So that's getting going at 1 o'clock. They're playing against Milwaukee. That seems like an easy win for the Spurs. I mean, Giannis is not going to be in the game. He's, quote, Doc says Giannis is progressing, but not yet healthy. So we'll see what happens there. Also in Milwaukee, Ryan Rollins is having an absolutely unbelievable season. I don't think it's getting talked about enough. And he's currently, I think, the 5th leading betting favorite or so for the most improved player. He's a 2nd-round pick, Ryan Rollins. And he is doing some absolutely insane stuff. I think he's their leading scorer. I'm going to go pull his basketball reference up right now. But he's a betting favorite behind 4 first-round picks. And he was a 2nd-round pick. He was taken 44th overall by the Atlanta Hawks. But this year, in 70 games, he's averaging 32 minutes. He's shooting 47% from the field, 41% from 3. I mean, he's shooting 78% from the free throw line. Last season, he was averaging 6.2 points. This year, he's averaging 17.1. And I think him being behind 4 former first round picks is an absolute joke. This is what the most improved player was for, is for the guys that were doing nothing and improving to the quality of NBA player that Ryan Rollins now is, and putting up good numbers, especially based on draft position. He's a second round pick. Like Malcolm Brogdon was a second round pick and won. He won Rookie of the Year. My apologies. But I think the most improved player is now sort of turning into, you weren't an all-star last year, but you were an all-star this year. Like Pascal Siakam is a great example of a most improved player. I know he was a first-round pick. He was a very late first-round pick, and he was a guy that spent time in the G League and didn't have a lot of minutes, and then became a starting power forward in the NBA and wasn't good. And then the next year, all of a sudden, was putting up 18 points per game and almost a double-double. Like that is what that is for. And I think Ryan Rollins should be an absolute shoo-in for the most improved player this year, and he's not. So that's incredibly sad to me. And then again, just a great slate of games. Actually, I lied to you. They're not a great slate of games. The first 2 are good games. The Detroit, Minnesota, they're playing at 3:30. Minnesota, I think they're an absolute wagon. Detroit, can they stay afloat with no Cade? Cade had a collapsed lung, and I was racking my brain trying to figure out what athlete had a collapsed lung and came back really fast. And then I remembered it was TJ Watt. He had a collapsed lung. He played for the Steelers like the next week. And I know it, like football and basketball are very different, and basketball is a lot more of an endurance sport. But man, TJ Watt, I think, is an animal. And then another game today, the Charlotte Hornets, Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are in Charlotte. I love the Hornets game so much. If you have not watched a Charlotte Hornets game, the headline that's really taken over is that Melo is averaging his lowest points per game, assists per game, rebounds per game, but he's shooting the ball so much better. And the Hornets themselves are way better. If you had told me before the season started that LaMelo Ball would evolve into a winning basketball player, I would have called you crazy and sent you to the nut house. Because never, ever in my wildest dreams would I ever have guessed that he would be a winning basketball player. We saw the first 5 years of his career. It was good stats, bad team guy. Looked like he'd be another Bradley Beal or something like that, Zach LaVine. And now the Hornets are winning. And I put a lot of that into Brandon Miller is now taking it to the cup a lot more. He's not trying to be an outside presence. He's not forcing outside shots. He's just taking it to the rack over and over and over again. And then I also give it to Moussa Diabate. I had this really interesting, if you follow us on Instagram, Sports 1440 AM, I was doing these things called, I will continue to do these things called the Basketball Report. And I had one all done called What's Happening in Charlotte. And I gave a lot of credit to Moussa Diabate because the lineup of Moussa Diabate, Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, Con Knipple, who's going to be the Rookie of the Year, and I forget who the 5th player is, but alas, they were the second highest scoring team per 100 possessions, or had the second highest point differential between opponents in over 100 minutes played. I think that was fair. They were outscoring teams 24 points. The only lineup that was better, and this was before Bam's 83, was a lineup that the Miami Heat had rolling. And that's because Moussa Diabate is such a good defender. He is absolutely unreal defender. He's an inside presence. And the fact that the Clippers could have had that and they don't, and they shipped him off he went off to the Hornets, is really too bad for the Clippers because they could use some center depth. But I think this guy is a huge integral piece to the success that the Hornets are having. He's such an inside presence. The opponent's field goal percentage just like drops by 5%. For an entire team's field goal percentage to drop by 5% when a 6'11" guy is on the court is is almost unfathomable to me. And then for it to like go up 5% as much as it does when he's off, it really speaks to that he's the defensive anchor of this team. And I believe now he's started more games than he's come off the bench for, so he can't win the Sixth Man of the Year award. But I would absolutely have had him as the Sixth Man of the Year before that happened. So I really like what's going on in Charlotte. Watch for them to make some noise in the playoffs, especially like they've had some good brawls with the Pistons this year, literal and metaphorically. But yeah, I if the Pistons don't have Cade going into the playoffs and they manage to sort of sneak into this 8 seed or even sneak into a home game or a regular playoff spot, the 6 seed, and they would be taking on the New York Knicks. I think that'd be an extremely fun game. But as of right now, they're still a game and a half back of the Hawks, who are holding that 6 seed spot tight for dear life, essentially. There's lots of good happening in the NBA. It's quality ball that's being played. And I know it sort of gets overshadowed this time of year due to March Madness, rightfully so, because March Madness is one of the best sporting events of the year. And it really kicks off the greatest sporting stretch of the year. I think you just watch some NBA and appreciate the greatness that you get to see. The song that you're hearing right now, it's a song for David. It was written by Paul's son, Ben, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. He wrote this song. It's called "The Song for David," wrote for David Finkelman, who lost his life. And then Ben unfortunately lost his life just a couple of years later. And Paul plays the song so that you guys just are kind to people. You know, remember to be kind to people because you don't know what it is they're going through and you don't know the situation in their life. So just walk through life treating people with kindness, because that's always the way to go. So yeah, shout out to Paul and his family. I always wish the best for them. Hope they're living it up in California, IA. Thank you so much for joining Hoop City with Paul Sir today. Obviously, in case you didn't know, it's my first time hosting any big time program here on Sports 1440. I'll be hosting next week. Hopefully I won't be riding solo, but we'll see where we come out. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a wonderful week on and off the court. I'm Josh Fenwick for Paul Sir on Hoop City with Paul Sir. Keep living it up on and off the court on your sports leader, Sports 1440.
The weather doesn't care about your shift or your schedule. Carhartt Rain Defender sweatshirts let you battle back against the ever-changing elements. Carhartt's durable, water-repellent technology lets light rain beat up and roll right off. Layer up and stay on the job longer without getting drenched. Get your